All right, welcome everybody to the Liverpool Reaction and American LC podcast. I'm joined with my co-host, Coach Ralph. Coach, 5-0 drubbing of West Ham. Let's keep the good times rolling.
Yes, Liverpool's run continues, and a great way to end the year.
Coach, 5 different goal scorers: Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, Diogo Jota, and Trent. Pretty, pretty nice to see the goals kind of being spread out like that. Shows the real aspect of the team here.
It does. And whilst Mo Salah is rightly grabbing a lot of the headlines, I think he's got more than sufficient support and people pulling their weight around him.
Coach, this game was over by halftime. It was 3-0. West Ham looked defeated. What were some takeaways from this game for you, at least from the first half, maybe, and then we can talk about the second half as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a good performance by Liverpool, but I thought it was a pretty abject performance by West Ham when you consider that they set up essentially with a back five and then two defensive midfielders in front of them. I mean, they offered very little defensive resistance, and I don't think I have any concerns. But if there was one slight one, it took so long for the first goal because Liverpool were creating regularly from the first whistle.
Mm-hmm. Luis Diaz kind of got a little bit fortunate on the goal. Ball kind of was deflecting around the 18-yard box, fell to him just properly, and then slots it away. It's nice to see Luis Diaz scoring goals, Coach. We talked about it last time around, but he's adding more goals. Cody Gakpo scoring goals regularly. It was nice to see Trent on the score sheet, and we know what Jota can do.
Yes.
And obviously Salah has been, Ballon d'Or type of season so far. But with Diaz and Gakpo, what is it about their games now that are flourishing from a standpoint of they're scoring goals now regularly?
Well, I think the thing with Gakpo is his favoured position is playing on the left side. And I think he really did that under Jurgen Klopp. So he's in a situation where he plays there for the national team. And I mean, even under Klopp, if you think about the 7-0 game against Manchester United, that's where he played that day. And for some reason, that's really suits him down to the ground. He's a big, strong lad, powerful on the ball, and he just loves to cut inside. And we all know what kind of shot he's got. It can be vicious.
His crosses are nice too when he cuts it back and he kind of floats it to the back post. So those both are really
Right.
effective weapons. But what about Diaz? What's changing his game, you think?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, he seems to drift around a lot. If you actually look at recent games when Szoboszlai and Jones have played as kind of the point of the three-man midfield, they pretty much make it a four at times. And part of that is to do tactically with the press. But both those players play very, very high up the field. And I think that enables Diaz isn't essentially then an out-and-out target man or striker, because I think he likes to move around, and he seems to be getting on the end of things. He's very good in the air, Diaz.
Yeah, he really is. The more I think about kind of what's happening this season and, this incredible run, Coach, you and I talked about patience at the beginning of the season. We got off to a good start. It was a kind of a nice start to the season from a fixture standpoint. And then it was really nice going through this tough stretch that we knew was coming November to December. And man, just flying colors. Coach, what is Arne Slot really a tactical genius? I know he's got a team that was kind of spin together, that knows how to win, that's won trophies before, that it's a good squad, but it still takes somebody to come in and be able to pull the strings properly. So did we just get incredibly lucky with a guy that maybe flew under the radar and tactically is a magician?
Yeah, I think he's certainly got tactical acumen. I mean, there's no question of that. But I think that what he's done best out of his time so far is he's been very smart in a lot of his decisions. I mean, I think his first big decision was, he's not going to come in, he's not going to make hundreds and thousands of changes. Pretty much, everybody's in place, and you've got slight changes with Diaz maybe playing more down the middle, Gakpo in his favoured position, and I think in the early games of the season, he actually had the fullbacks playing from a deeper role, and now we're starting to see that. Where at times, I think back to the Tottenham game, the fullbacks were playing incredibly high again. And I don't know if that's something that he's gradually introduced into the game. But he's just made so many good decisions. And obviously he's got the respect of the players, because that's a big piece of the puzzle, is you're coming in to replace a legend. I mean, not many people knew about Arne Slot before he came. I mean, I didn't know much about him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much the players would know, maybe some of the Dutch lads. But he has to earn their respect, and I think he got that pretty quickly. If you look at the American tour, when obviously a lot of the top players were missing, you could still see there was some kind of a tactical plan, the way they were set up. And then all he did was basically take out one set of pieces and put in another set of pieces when all his top players arrived. And so far, it's paid dividends. Although I think me, I'm always cautious because we're still only halfway through the season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of games to be played. There's a lot can happen. And I think that where the Premier League feels differently this year is, it's getting that pre-Manchester City sense back where teams beat each other. And so consequently, you've got Nottingham Forest second. You've got Manchester United. What are they, like 14th or something?
Yeah, 14th.
Yeah. I mean, like they're moving towards the relegation zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, may not stay for the rest of the season, but there's a little more jeopardy, I think, than we've seen in past years. And whilst Liverpool haven't been on the receiving end of that, it could happen very, very easily. I think Liverpool are an excellent team. I think we've seen different sides of their game, but I don't think they're invincible. Let's just put it like that.
Sure. Chelsea loses to Ipswich Town yesterday. And you mentioned any team can beat any team, and it just seems that when these things are happening, we're winning. So we're kind of extending the lead. We had a couple draws in a row, Newcastle and Fulham back to back. And that seemed to be the only blip so far. And the Fulham game really could be viewed as a victory, considering we had Andy Robertson with the red card, I think, in the 19th minute. So the majority of the game they played without an extra guy. So 10 versus 11, and still looked very dangerous. Coach, when you think about a potential other blip that's coming, the fixture list isn't that congested now from a standpoint of difficult teams all at once.
Right.
So do you think the blip is going to come from a standpoint of being a competitor on all fronts with the Champions League, the League Cup, FA Cup, and the Premiership?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the longer the season goes on, there'll be more and more games as long as Liverpool stay in the cups, and clearly they're going to make the Champions League knockout, although they won't have to play in the first phase. So that opens up time for them. That does open up time. We'll see how they do in the League Cup. I think everybody will be thinking, oh, well, they stuck 6 past Tottenham the other week. It's a foregone conclusion, but I don't think cup football's like that. And so I think we've got Tottenham and Manchester United in the next 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Manchester United are not in a good place right now. And if you think about the last few years, Liverpool have given them a few drubbings. But one thing that I would point out as well is there's been a couple of games when Liverpool were supposed to come in and cream them, and then they didn't. I think some of the hammerings have come when it's just been kind of normal expectations. Everyone's expecting Manchester United to get hammered next weekend, and hopefully that happens. But if you think back, I think the last game they won was well, there was a cup game, but there was the game early in Eric Ten Hag's reign when he lost those first 2 games. And I know on the BBC they were forecasting a 5-goal victory for Liverpool, and Manchester United won.
Yeah.
So I feel that these are the kind of games when maybe things could go wrong. But having said that, if Liverpool plays well with a reasonable amount of luck, yeah, it's tough to see past them.
So this one's in Anfield, and the previous game at Old Trafford was a 3-0 win for Liverpool. Right. Although I think the scoreline was a little bit deceiving. United did have some chances, didn't play all that bad. Now with a new coach who's already under the gun, it feels like, from the way the commentators are talking to him, the pundits are talking about him not wanting to change his style. And, I think they're being very harsh on the poor guy. And he's already kind of feels like he's already being a little bit frazzled by the intense media in England. But he's a good coach as well. He, like Arne Slot, was victorious in his league, in the Portuguese league from Sporting. They hadn't won in a long time, and he did that. Very similar to Arne Slot at Feyenoord. They hadn't won in a long time, and he brought them a title. So there's some parallels there from a coaching aspect, but Arne Slot had the whole preseason, even though some of the top players weren't there until the week or 2 before the season started. Ruben Amorim starting in January with a team that is lacking in a lot of different ways. What do you think that Ruben Amorim will be able to do? Because he likes to play the 3 in the back and 2 wing backs to as a setup, and he's claiming that he's not going to change his style. How is Liverpool going to be able potentially to take advantage of that?
Well, based on what we saw, especially in that first half against Newcastle, I mean, they were awful. And I think one thing that's been difficult for Amorim is he's got a lot of players, and he's changing it from game to game. And I can only guess is he's just trying to find the right combination for the short term. I think the long term is totally different in terms of longer term. He'll have time to get to know the players better, sign some players that suit his formation and his style. But right now it's just kind of chop and change. And really, I can't see Manchester United playing a game where they take the game to Liverpool. So I think he's got to concentrate on a really solid back 3. They don't have pace.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to really play pretty deep, because obviously, well, you saw what happened to Tottenham. I mean, basically it's Russian roulette if you play that against Liverpool.
Right.
So he's going to have to sit them fairly deep. Now, he does have a lot of players with pace. So I don't think he has solid defenders, say like Nottingham Forest. I mean, looking at the way that the league is evolving this year, you see what a good job the manager has done at Nottingham Forest in terms of he's looked at his players. He's got some very strong defensive players, and he's got a lot of pace, and then he's got a target man up front who can hold the ball, play the ball to other players, knock balls on, and so he's not being caught up like so many teams. Okay, we get the ball from a goal kick, play it out wide. Let's possess around the 18, and I think to some degree. Amarin, I mean, you can still play with a back three, but I think there's got to be less emphasis on maybe defense and maybe try to bypass the press. Because, as I say, I mean, some of these teams Liverpool have played recently, I mean, like they fiddle with the ball at the back and yeah, I mean, it's not helping them. It's not helping them at all. So I think, well, obviously I don't manage at that level, but I would try to bypass the press.
Yeah. The one thing you mentioned, the speed of the back three is not very good. Maguire's not very quick. De Ligt isn't very quick. I'm assuming Dallo will probably be one of the back three. I understand your caution. I understand that it's United. It's a vicious rivalry. Records kind of go out the window when they play. But I really feel that Liverpool is gonna put the hammer down again. I just think they're playing very, very well. United's not. I see another 3-0, 3-1 kind of game. I just don't know where the threat's going to come from United, even though they do have good players. It's just they're not meshing well right now under the new manager.
Yeah, I don't think you can start with Casemiro and Eriksen. I mean, Eriksen is a fabulous player, but obviously past his best. Casemiro's past his best.
Yeah.
And I mean, Casemiro was really exposed at Old Trafford against Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a foolish way to line up. He's got to have Kobe Manu in there that has some energy and some youth and gets around the field. But yeah. I mean, it's our biggest rival. And that's on both sides of the fence. So it's an important game. He's got a little more time, perhaps, to work with the team, like they played yesterday. But now he's got more of a straight run.
Yeah.
So he can kind of again look at his squad and come up with a more comprehensive game plan for the weekend because of the time. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, certainly at the back, he doesn't have the greatest options, but I mean, any team can pack it in.
Yeah.
It's a question of can they do it well, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about Casemiro and Eriksen, but Kobe Manu and who else can you put in there? Bruno's more up front. He's going to be back, and he always gives Liverpool fits. But
well, Ugarte, I think that
Ugarte
would be a logical choice. Ugarte and Manu, and as your two holding midfield players or central mid, whichever formation he chooses.
Yeah. Okay. Coach, then on to Tottenham for Wednesday, midweek. It's at Tottenham again. We've put up 11 goals in that stadium in back-to-back games. What makes you cautious about this one? Is it just because Ange has said that he is not changing? This is his style. Yeah. How is this going to be different? I know they were missing some defenders in our game, but I don't know how that would be much different.
Right. I don't know whether the Dutch lad will be back because obviously he's a key player for them. So I think that you make a good point, Salim. You know, he's not going to compromise too much. So, well, the interesting thing is what kind of team will the manager put out?
Mm-hmm.
I would expect Kelleher to be in goal. I think he may give Simicast a run at left back. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a possibility. I think he may look to make one or two changes, but at the same time, I think if I was in his shoes, I'd be looking at it and saying, okay, we're a couple of games away from Wembley, and this is silverware in my first season. So I don't think he's going to make too many changes like he might have done in some of the earlier rounds. I think he's going to play to win.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to field Simicast, Kelleher. Depends who he plays in midfield. You know, like he might rest one of the midfield after the Manchester United game. But you're talking about a pool of 4 players, and then Elliott as your 5th.
Right.
So again, there's not going to be many changes. He could start Nunes, but again, you know, it's the same story. You know, touch wood, we don't get injuries at the weekend. I don't think it's a problem in midfield and up front, but it could be a problem at the back.
Yeah.
Because Gomez has a hamstring injury. So clearly he's not going to be back for these games, and he could well be out for a while. And there's no real word on Canate. So Liverpool are potentially a little short-handed. Could we be in a situation that we were a couple of years back where basically the whole of the back 4 got injured? Hopefully not,
Mm-hmm.
because that is something that could derail the season in the short term for sure.
That was one of my favorite seasons coming down the stretch because Liverpool won like 8 games in a row to finish in third with those types of injuries was kind of a really uh, exciting season and overperformance. So I really enjoyed that season when it was all said and done with Nat Phillips and Ryan. What's the other guy's name?
Reece Williams, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
one thing interesting about that season, things you brought it up, was when they lost Van Dijk early in the season,
yeah.
but
Pickford.
then the other 3 they lost them in quick succession around Christmas.
Yeah,
And Klopp made a decision to put his central midfielders at the back. The whole team got disjointed
yeah,
before he then brought in his 2 academy lads. He admitted he'd made a mistake, and then things turned around. If you take out the middle part of the season, Liverpool were the form team at the start up until Christmas, and for that last run of 10 games, it was just that horrible midsection when they lost the central defence, and Klopp made the errors that he admitted.
yeah, yeah. Coach, I'm looking at Tottenham's game here against Wolves, and unless they get some defenders back, it's not. It's very similar to what we played, the lineup we played, minus Udogi being in. But Gray, Dragusin, Poro, Basuma, Betancourt, Kulusevski, Solanke, Son, and Brennan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, like they have very good attacking options, Tottenham, and they try to play that to their advantage. But you're right, he won't compromise. You know, the high back line. So yeah, I think you've got to favour Liverpool, but you never know. An early goal for Tottenham to get some encouragement, the crowd gets involved, and it's a different game.
yeah, for sure, that can happen. Coach, we're 1 day away from the new year. January 1st is opens the transfer window, but also gives teams outside of Europe the opportunity to sign or negotiate a pre-contract with our 3 three of our best players with Trent, Mo, and Virgil. There's a lot of murmurs in the background saying that all three have been in communications, and more specifically, Mo and Virgil are in contract negotiations, or at least their agents are on their behalf. And Trent, I'm not sure what. I think there's no real news on him one way or another, although everybody seems to think that he's leaning to go to Real Madrid. Coach, can you blame him for doing that?
I suppose not. I suppose not. He's he's been at Anfield since he was a young kid. As so many are pointing out, he's won everything with Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
And if they end up winning a trophy or two more this year, that's a good note to go out on. And I mean, out of the three, if you were to ask me, well, how's he performed this season? I think it's been a mixed bag, to be honest with you. I mean, there was one pass he played against West Ham down the line to Salah that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he has that in his locker for sure, but he's been very inconsistent, I feel. And as I say, a bit of a mixed bag. The other two, Van Dijk and Salah, have been top notch. And I mean, who knows where this is going? Who knows where this is going? Logically, and from the sound of it, Trent is on his way. And I don't blame him, I guess. And then the other two are kind of advanced in years, but I mean, Virgil van Dijk's the leader of the team.
Yeah.
And so you're not just losing a great defender, but you're losing somebody that leads. And that's, you can get another good central defender in, but does somebody have that presence? And then Salah, I mean, his stats are ridiculous this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's all going to pan out. I have no real idea. And I don't think most of us do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough just to kind of be sitting here wondering, what's happening, but there's a lot we're not privy to, and I have a feeling things in the background are taking shape, and I don't know what the tie-up is. Is it years? Is it money? Is it a combination of both? But you have to imagine that these two specifically have to be locked in for at least another year or two, and start to bring in potential replacements over the summer to bed them in. The Trent thing is interesting to me, Coach, because he's so we know what he's capable of, and the ball that you were talking about, is that the one that he chipped over the central defender, and Mo Salah took a touch and then skied it over the bar? Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, that was one good pass, but there was one in, I think it was this. I can't remember the second half. It was when they were attacking the goal to the left. I can't remember. Yeah. So it was first half, and he kind of hit this low ball, and I think he used the outside of his foot. I know the technique.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just inch perfect. And Salah got on the end of it, but his first touch was heavy, and it went off the field. But it was just an incredible pass.
Yeah.
And he has that vision and that passing ability that that I feel has been overlooked. Maybe not at Anfield. One of the things that I feel with Trent Alexander-Arnold is he's had this situation with the national team. And pretty much everybody talks about him and certain qualities he has that make him the best in the world in that position. And then other people kind of, okay, well, he's not good defensively. And we've talked about this before. I think I've only ever heard one pundit actually point out the most relevant point about the defensive side of his game. And that was that in the Jurgen Klopp setup, he played so far up the field. and then he's having to get back all the time, and that's not an easy situation. I think earlier in the season he was playing more of a traditional fullback role, in as much as not getting so much forward in the wide areas. Maybe he would still drift into central midfield at times.
Yeah.
But I would say he's solid defensively. It's not the strongest part of his game, but it's not the worst part in the sense that he's dreadful, as I think some pundits, like, they praise him on the one hand and then they take it back on the other hand.
Yeah.
So I think for him maybe to leave the country and maybe go to a club that's top club. They've got a lot of great players, and he'll fit in terms of the technical side of the game, and maybe won't be under the microscope so much as he has been in terms of pundits and fans over here.
Yeah, but on the other hand, too, I mean, Liverpool legend, statue in front of the stadium type of career, potentially being here the whole time, a la Steven Gerrard. It's an interesting bet. I'm sure that's going through his mind, and what should I do? Everything you mentioned about he's won everything. Is it time for a new challenge, or should I just stay here? We have a good team, we have a good coach, we have a good organization. I'm playing well. I'm being recognized as a very good player. Maybe I stay another 5 years, into my 30s. Continue to do that, and then go to MLS or Saudi or something like that. I don't know.
Right, but he's not Steven Gerrard. I mean, like, Steven Gerrard was the actual heart of the team.
That's true.
I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a very talented footballer. And if you go back 20 plus years to Steve McManaman, because that's what it feels like. It feels like the Steve McManaman situation again. Very, very talented footballer. And maybe didn't quite get the recognition in terms of national team and all that kind of stuff. And it's a bit of a rerun, I feel, in some respects.
I can see
even
that.
Though they play totally different positions.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, Coach, 2 exciting games coming up.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch them. United's always a fun watch. Tottenham is exciting one way or another. So look forward to watching these, and we'll reconnect with everybody soon, maybe after the United game, maybe after the Tottenham game. We're working through a couple things, but we are looking forward to these games. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're listening in podcast form, take care, everybody. From my behalf and Coach's,
happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye.